Hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar from London Business School on how to submit a strong application. Today's webinar will be focusing on both the EMBA London and the EMBA Dubai and the EMBA Global program. The webinar will be led by myself. My name is Zenab Matloob and I'm the Recruitment and Admissions Manager for the Executive MBA London program. And I'm joined today by Lyndon Selby, who's the Senior Recruitment and Admissions Manager for EMBA Global and Sloan. In terms of what's on the agenda today, we have decided to keep it very much application-based because for those of you that are joining us on the webinar today, we assume you've already done your research, and the reason that why you're here is because you know you want to submit an application for London Business School. So to start off, we will be starting with the key components. So the basic documents that make up the EMBA Global and EMBA London and Dubai application, why they're important, what we're looking for in these key components, these key documents. That will be followed by the admissions process. So just a quick overview to let you know what the process is once you've submitted your application and it's reached a complete status. And then finally, the most important bit, which is the admissions perspective. Having two managers leading the webinar today, we thought it would be key for us to sort of give our perspective to all of you in terms of what we look for when we are reviewing these applications and when we do shortlist them for an interview. And then finally, we'll end it on a final message. So what our last tip or / advice to you when you're doing your application, the things to keep in mind. And then we'll finally end with the Q&A session where you can ask us any sort of questions that you might have based on the programs or the application itself. So to start off with, why don't we go over the key elements that make a LBS application. So the first thing that you have is the application form. So this is the form itself, which has all sorts of detail on it, your personal detail, your primary location, your salary, your current job role, responsibilities, direct reports, your previous responsibilities as well. And then it's also got, details on your English language level, your undergraduate degree, if you feel like your academic background justifies what you have to offer or not. What I would say about the application form is make sure you give as much detail as possible. Although you will be providing us with your CV, but the application form actually enables us to see the breakdown of your career progression, why you took certain job roles, why you decided to change roles, the direction that your career is going in. So in a way, it helps us to think like you were thinking when you made these decisions. So make sure you fill in all the description. Quite often we get people that tend to leave the responsibilities part out, or they'll just put a sentence or two in. But that is your chance to actually elaborate on what you do, what your responsibilities are, and not stick to the one-page requirement that we advise people for the CV. Which nicely brings me on to the next point, which is the CV. First and foremost, let's stick to 1 page for the CV, or 2 page if you are really desperate. What we like to see on there is the job titles you've been in, all the job titles that you've been in that you think played a key role in the experience that you've had. Don't miss any roles out, even if they were quite early on in your career. It will still give us a better understanding of your career journey, academic qualifications, what your hobbies are, anything that you do outside of work. So if you're a board member for any company, or if you do any sort of voluntary work, or if you work with any charities, that is also something that we do like to see. And then thirdly, there's the essays. So all our applications have 3 essays in them. What I always like to think about the essays is it's our way of getting to know you on a personal level. There is a point that of these essays being there, they focus on career objectives, self-awareness, how your working dynamics, who you would want in your study group, for instance, how you would help us as an alumni. So make sure you put in effort with the essays as well. It is what will make you look different from all the other applications we're reviewing. It's the reason that we will remember you when we interview you, and it shows us what makes you so different. And the fourth thing is academics and GMAT and EA. So academics is undergraduate transcripts, postgraduate transcripts, any other professional qualifications that you have. If you did do your undergraduate in a different language and the certificate is in a different language, we will need a qualified individual to translate that for us. In terms of the GMAT and the EA, it is a requirement. Unfortunately, we cannot waive it. The GMAT was a reason that why we did used to give waivers in the past, because we deal with executives, and these are people that might not always have the time to take a lengthy test like the GMAT. So for that reason, we introduced the executive assessment together with GMAT. And in terms of the prep time, the prep time is a lot less than the GMAT. I don't want to put a number on it because it varies depending on every individual. But the test itself is 90 minutes long, and it is a lot more specified to executives and the skills that we would require you to have if you are an executive. And then we have references. So 2 references are compulsory. One of them has to be from your line manager. So there's 2 reasons for that. The first one is your line manager works with you on an everyday basis. You know, they know what the strengths that you have, the weaknesses that you have, that will help you whilst you're on the program. And then it's also our way of knowing that your employer is aware of you applying for London Business School. You know, your employer is your biggest stakeholder whilst you're doing the program, so we need to know that they're aware of this commitment that you are going to be making. And then for the EMBA Global, we have the company support letter. So if Lyndon, you want to elaborate on that?
I thought, hello everybody, and good morning, good evening and good afternoon, depending on whereabouts you are. I thought I'd just give the EMBA Global perspective. The application form, CV, essays, academics, executive assessment or GMAT or GRE and references, this is all exactly the same for the EMBA Global programme. And the partner schools, Columbia Business School and the University of Hong Kong, can see your application just as we can in London. I do want to add though, because EMBA Global is such a commitment, with basically 3 or 4 days off every single month over the period, and the opportunity to do electives in 3 schools, this does require a lot more commitment, and therefore we ask for a company support letter. This is simply a statement. You can upload the pro forma that you need to complete from the application form. It will say that they're aware of your studies. It may also say that they're supporting you financially, but that's not necessary. We just need to see that letter of company support, as Zeni said with the references, to be really clear that the company are aware of your intention to study. And also, perhaps they're excited as well by your decision to go into your executive MBA.
Right. So once you've actually submitted your application comes the application process. So the first thing is the initial review of your completed application. So this is done by the admissions managers and the senior admissions managers. So myself and Lyndon and all the other parallels that we have in the other teams. Something to remember when we do your review your application is that we have a very holistic approach. So we don't just focus on one thing that you have to offer. So for instance, if you're lacking in the global experience that you have, or if your undergraduate isn't that great, we're not going to use that to base our decision only on that. We will still see, what you have to offer, the experience that you have, the career progression that you have, how you will be contributing to the classroom. So I do definitely think that is something to keep in mind, because the amount of times we've had people in the past who've hesitated to submit their application because they thought their EA score wasn't good enough, or their undergraduate, they didn't hold an undergraduate, or the undergraduate wasn't good enough. So definitely I think sort of keep in mind that our approach is always going to be very holistic. After the review of your application, you will be informed if you have been shortlisted for an interview. If you have been shortlisted for an interview, this is of course followed by an interview. Generally for EMBA London, you normally hear a decision back from us within 5 working days after your interview. So the turnaround is quite quick, which is good because it means there's less waiting time. And then this is then followed by the final admissions decision, which is a decision that is made by both the person that will be interviewing you and the rest of the admissions committee. And I think something I'd like to emphasize on here is that when you do attend the interview, you should always keep in mind that the reason we do the interview is to get more information out of you, to probe further into areas that we're unsure about. It's not for us to sit there and, make a judgment or make a decision straight away. We are literally gathering all the right information and then to present a case to the rest of the committee members and get them on board with the decision that we have made.
And I'd just like to chip in again from that EMBA global point of view to say that we follow exactly the same process. The partner schools will see the application. In London, if you're based in certain regions, London will make that shortlisting decision. If you're based in other regions, it could be Columbia or the University of Hong Kong. So we have responsibility for those decisions. Interviews can take place at any of the campuses, and we reach our final admissions decision together as part of a committee.
Great. And now we come on to probably the most key part of the webinar today. What are we looking for in an application? So as I mentioned previously, myself and Lyndon both review applications. We both carry out interviews for our programs as well. So I would say that this is probably the key part of this webinar today. So be sure to make notes because we will be sharing our perspective with you and, sort of elaborating on what we look for when we're reviewing your application. So in terms of the good things that we look for in an application, so something that stands out to us or something that we look for when we're reviewing these applications and see as a positive, the first thing is vision. So I would say this is probably the most key thing. So when we say vision, we mean we would like to see how doing the program fits in with your career ambitions. Your long-term and short-term goals are something that you will be talking about at some point during the application. So how is it that the EMBA or the EMBA Global will be helping you take that step or giving you the right skills in order to achieve these goals? The second one is impact. So the role that you're currently in or the role that you will be going into, what sort of impact will the program have on that? In terms of the format of the programs, they're learn and apply. So what sort of impact will you be able to have at work? How will the program impact your current skill set and be able to help you in your day-to-day role? And then finally, there's support. So support would be yourself as an individual. So, things like your soft skills or gaining the right leadership skills, management skills in order to become the leader that you want to be tomorrow. So it's sort of giving you the toolkit that you will need in order to achieve your long-term and short-term and developing you as an individual. The support doesn't only mean faculty and lectures, it also means, the support you'll be getting from your study groups, the support you'll be getting from your employer by them knowing that you're doing the program and, sort of motivating you to develop even more. And then also the support that you'll be getting from the Career Centre, who play a big part in all our programs. And the next one is research. For me, this is quite key. I mean, you're applying for a very big brand, a very big school. We're known all across the world. So I think doing your research and knowing exactly what it is that makes the EMBA Global or the EMBA London so different and so special is key. Knowing the cores, knowing the modules, picking those little things that you'll be able to use to justify as to why you've chosen us and why you've chosen our program. It is definitely going to be something that you will be tested on. And then finally, contribution. So as I said, in the application form, when I mentioned making sure you put all your responsibilities, it is for this very reason, because when we see your responsibilities, when we see your experience, what you were doing at the start of your career or what you were doing at the end of your career, it is our way of seeing how you will be able to contribute your personal experience into the classroom. I mean, we are very big believers in not only learning from faculty and lecturers and whatnot, but also learning from each other. So if you've got someone in your study group who, for instance, has a less number of experience than you, we would like to know that if you are put into a study group with them, you are able to contribute to the study group and sort of develop them as well and help them out in terms of, you know, building up on their knowledge and sharing your experiences with them.
My bit is, as Zenny's talked about, the things that, you know, we're looking for in the admissions process. I thought I would just talk a little bit about where we see an application derail. So picking up on Zenny's point about how you're going to contribute, the joy of working with leadership programme candidates who are aspiring to EMBA and EMBA Global programmes is that you're people who've built up already quite a lot of career experience and personal experience. And we expect you to make a really good contribution to the learning of others and to showcase that within your essays, weave it in. So many candidates, however, really only focus on the benefits. What am I going to get? So even though it often comes out, perhaps at interview or in discussions, that people can make a great contribution to the learning of their peers, a lot of essays really focus purely on what I'm going to get. And that derails an application because it's a two-way process. We're bringing people in who will not only be individual students, but they'll be part of what we see as a great cohort. Another area where applicants derail is when they only focus on the future, the sort of golden world that will open up to them at a point when they've achieved their MBA. And the thing that excites me and my colleagues in admissions is where we see people who have gained increasing responsibilities, increasing challenges, that they're able to apply the learning in the jobs they have now, as well as in some point in the future to take them towards their goals. So don't just talk about the future that you see unrolling for yourself. Look at what you're doing now and really show that you're the sort of person who has challenges right now. You've taken on responsibilities, and this is how a programme like the EMBA or the EMBA Global is really going to support you. We are a famous school. The EMBA Global programme is a combination of famous schools. Some people derail because they only look at maybe rankings, they only look at sort of branding, and maybe it's just ticking a box. I need an MBA, therefore I'm going to get a good one. And applicants do derail when they haven't done their research. They can't make a case really for why this programme, this place, this combination of schools. You know, it really is a sort of, it could almost be any school that you're reading about. So don't just tick the box. Do really show that you understand about the dynamics of the programme, the courses, the schools involved, and that will make your application stronger. And finally, a lack of structure. The application form gives you a wonderful opportunity to map out your career, what you did, your key responsibilities. Don't waste precious essay time reframing this or rewriting this. The next piece is just answer the question. When you've finished your application, go back, get somebody else to read it and think genuinely, have I answered that question? Because you've all got plenty of experience. It's very easy to overwrite. Just go back and think, did I answer the question? Could I make this clearer? Could I make this a little more engaging? Don't feel that you've got to put in lots of business school citations. You're not writing an academic essay. You're really telling us about yourself. And the last piece on the structure just really sort of speaks back to how you approach it. Get all the pieces together, have the conversations, do your research, and then be prepared to sit down and focus on yourself. And I really do have to say that you're all busy people. When did you last sit down and really focus on yourself, what you've achieved, and where you want to go? Just that piece around completing the application process can be really, really enlightening about helping you get direction for hopefully a successful application and also your time as a student and your future career. Our final advice to you, Zenny and I have got a couple of pieces. Mine is that when you undertake an executive MBA, your friends and your family are going to want to know about this. They'll support you, they'll be your champions, but it will also take its toll. So do involve friends and family, because they're the ones who will hopefully see you succeed in the future as you go through the programme, but also they're the ones who'll be seeing a little bit less of you over the 20 months. And my other bit of advice, spell checker is nobody's friend. There are so many essays where a word is perfectly okay on the spell checker. It doesn't really tell us what we need to know in your essays. So get a good friend to sit down and read through those essays with you. Pick up anything that's a spelling mistake like that. Make sure you've answered the question. And if you've taken on board all the things that Zenny and I have told you, you should be in a position to do a great application. Zenny, do you have any last comments?
I think one of the things that I would say, from all the applications I've reviewed till date and whatnot, I think structure is very key. So make sure you have a very, very clear structure in your application. Make sure that you have the correct tone as well. I mean, as I mentioned, the essays are there for us to see, your personal side and your individual side. But don't let this pour into the rest of the application, because we can pick up on that quite easily. You're all executives, you're applying for an executive program, so make sure you stick to the structure. The second thing I would also include, which sort of links onto that, is the way that you should see this application is it's sort of like the first time we're going to meet you. If you are shortlisted for an interview, we will meet you face to face as well, but the application is the first impression that we'll get of you. So make sure you put that extra effort in, and make sure that you put the extra time into it, because at the end of the day, if you put the extra time and effort into it, as Lyndon said, you do your research, you follow the structure, this only means that your chances of being shortlisted will increase, and we'll be able to see the sort of executive that you are, and if you are someone that we do want on our program. So with that, we'll end the webinar there. The upcoming deadlines for EMBA London are the 30th of November 2017, and EMBA Global is the 14th of November 2017. For EMBA London, the recruitment email address is emba@london.edu, and EMBA Global is embag@london.edu. And with that, I think we'll dive into the questions. So the first question that we have is, what is the ideal EA or GMAT score that you look for? So with the EA and GMAT, we see 650 as a good score for the GMAT, and for the EA it's 150. However, there are two things to keep in mind when you do take your EA and GMAT is, again, we have a very holistic approach. So say if you were to get a score just below 150 for the EA, this doesn't necessarily mean we're going to use that against you and turn down your application or not review you and push you into the interview stage. If anything, we'll sort of see what else you have to offer, the experience that you have. Obviously everyone's been out of the classroom for a while now, so we don't expect everyone to get 150 straight away. If anything, we'll probably ask you to reapply, resit. And for the GMAT, we see 650 as a good score. And apart from the score itself, we also look at the overall balance of the score. So to see if there's a good balance between your cons, your integrated reasoning, and your verbal. And the next question is, how should I choose my referees?
So this is a question that comes up quite a lot, and we definitely want one reference to be your supervisor or your manager. We want them to be able, so we want you to generate that discussion with them. The references are completed online. You manage your referees, you put their names into the application form and their emails, and then the system will ping out an email to your recommenders. Choose people who know you well. Your supervisor is the person we want to hear from. But for your second referee, some people say, oh, well, I've only worked for this manager for a short period of time. Should I go back to my previous manager? Yep, absolutely right. Then we've got a deeper and more sort of balanced and reflective view of you. Some people feel it's really important that they get a recommendation from somebody who's at the top of the organisation. And, you know, that's great if you have a genuine relationship with somebody who's at that sort of top CEO level. That's absolutely fantastic, but they need to be able to comment on you in detail. They need to understand who you are, what you're going to bring, how you're going to benefit, what value you're going to bring into the organisation. And finally, some people will not have a supervisor or a manager that they can go to for their recommendations. You may be running your own consultancy, you may be running your own enterprise venture. And in that case, what we normally ask for is, if you have it, a recommendation from somebody who you worked with or who managed you previously. But then, if you don't have a manager in your current setup, then go to your board. Go to professionals who have been involved with your venture, such as lawyers or perhaps a banking relationship. Talk to clients or key suppliers. They will also be good options for those members who come into us who have their own enterprise.
And the next question is, when is the best time to apply? So obviously, in terms of the admission cycle, the sooner you do it, the better. So if you were to submit your application earlier on in the admission cycle, it just means that it would go through the same process and it would take the same amount of time. So, you know, you'd have your review, you'd be invited to an interview within a week or 2 weeks, and then your decision will be sent out to you with a 2 weeks deadline. Now, having said that, a lot of people think that if they are to leave the application last minute, it increases their chances of getting onto the program. However, this is not true. If anything, it means that there's going to be more pressure on you to turn that application around. So say if you were potentially to submit an application towards the end of the admission cycle, so 1 week before we close the class, we will expect you to come in for an interview on the same day. The turnaround period for your deadline to meet all the requirements, if you are offered a place on the program, will be 24 hours. And, you know, quite often we do get people that think that this won't be that hard, but it is actually quite hard for some people to come up with the commitment fee payment within 24 hours. So I think give yourself enough time to be able to put together a good quality application, submit it, and then give yourself enough time to prepare for the interview.
We've had a question about overlapping classes. And one of the things that we're really passionate about at London and Columbia Business School are mixing people up and getting a really broad learning community. So when you do your elective courses, if you're doing your EMBA or if you're doing EMBA Global, you will end up studying with other students across the school communities. So if you were studying on the EMBA Global programme, you might be studying in Hong Kong or in Columbia or in London with members of the executive MBA classes. If you're doing London electives and you're part of the executive MBA, either in London or Dubai, you will end up studying again across the communities. The whole point is that we're mixing people up. The other opportunity to get broader networks and different perspectives comes through the global business assignments that you might undertake. And again, you'll be put to work with teams of people from those different programs. Again, it's a great opportunity to get different networks and different perspectives. There is another question just about the interview process and turnaround times for EMBA Global. And yes, we follow pretty much the same model. Apply early and post-interview, we normally expect to make our decisions within 5 to 10 working days of that interview, when we'll have held our admissions committee and discussed our candidates. So again, we're very conscious that if you're going to embark on one of our EMBAs, there's a lot of things to put in place. So we don't have any reason at all to hold off making decisions so everyone gets the decision at one point. We have a rolling admissions process. That means you get your decision in good time for you to make arrangements. And of course, the upside to that is that you get clarity quickly. The downside, of course, is that it's not good to leave it too late.
And then someone's asked a question of what's the difference between EMBA London and EMBA Dubai. So the programs are exactly the same. So obviously the key difference is the location. So EMBA London is based in London throughout all the core courses, and for electives you do get the option of doing some electives in Dubai if you are able to secure an elective through the bidding process. And for EMBA Dubai, for orientation, both the London and Dubai streams come together to London where we have our orientation, and then following that they have their core courses in Dubai in a block week format. So rather than having the fortnightly format like London, they have the block week format. And then finally, towards the end of your 20-month EMBA journey, we have capstone, which is when both the different streams come together for one last time before congregation. That would be the only difference. And then we have one question for EMBA Global. What if the word limit is over on the application?
And if you go over the word limit, we're quite forgiving if you're talking about 5 or 10 words. But remember, you're going to have to be writing essays, and faculty may not be so forgiving. So if you really are overwriting and you feel that there is just far too much to convey within the word limit, you may want to think about how to prune it down so you focus on the essentials. We're more than happy to sort of be forgiving when there's kind of 5 or 10 words. It's not so easy when people significantly overwrite in every single essay. So go back to the application form. Have you covered everything you need to cover there? Are you repeating information? Are you just pouring out everything rather than being selective and thinking about how you're going to structure what you're telling us? And remember that when a faculty member says that there is going to be an assignment, and that assignment has a word limit, they may well actually stop reading once you've reached that limit. So treat this as an exercise in how to convey what we need to know in a succinct fashion.
And then we have a question on where are interviews held. So for EMBA London, all our interviews are held on campus, and the interview is carried out by a senior admissions manager or an admissions manager. This is also the case if you are based abroad. So if you are based in France, for instance, and you've submitted an application for the EMBA London programme, we will ask you to attend the interview on campus, because not only does this give us the chance to meet you face to face and for you to make that personal impact, but it also allows us to see whether you will be committed enough to make that journey every 2 weeks, and also for you to almost get a trial of what it will be like if you are offered a place on the programme and what your commute will be like. So this applies no matter where you are, if you're based in Germany, Russia. We've had people flying from South Africa and America as well. I interviewed someone last week who flew in from America for her interview. So this is something that is a requirement. And how about for EMBA Global?
So for EMBA Global, usually people interview with the school that's managed their application according to region, but most of our candidates are in transit for their jobs. They have that transnational element in their careers. So we're more than happy to interview in London, Hong Kong, Dubai, or indeed in New York. So pretty much the globe is covered. We do like to come and see you. Some people say, why can't I just do a Skype interview? Skype can be good and it can be bad. It can be distracting. And these are taught masters. A, we want to kind of see you, meet you face to face. And B, if you are really too busy to come for an interview, it doesn't speak well for your ability to attend a rigorous programme in the partner schools for that sort of 20-month period. So we do like to see you, we like to get to know you. Skype was kind of a bit of a last resort, but most people prefer to be really face-to-face rather than Skype or telephone.
And then another question that we get quite often, actually, what do I do if my CV is longer than 1 page? Trim it down, have all the key information there. If you feel like if there's too much description around each role that you've done, cut it down. The people that will be reviewing your application, they will understand what your responsibilities were or what the small projects that you might have worked on were when you were in your current role or in any sort of previous job title that you had. So sort of, try and keep it to one page. Give us the key information that you think we need. Sort of let us see any voluntary work that you do that you think plays a big part in who you are today. And yeah, just stick to one page. I would strongly advise that. I mean, we've had instances where people submit CVs that are 5 pages long, and we do have to sort of fly through the application, make sure that we focus on the key things as well. So stick to one page. I would strongly advise that. And then the next question is, how do I approach my employer? So we do have a business development team in place, and you can get in touch with them, sort of see what their advice to you would be. And then we also have information online on how to make a business case. But from what I've seen, what I've heard from conversations I've had with colleagues, I think the main thing is to sort of show your employer how it will develop you as an individual, and also how it will have a positive impact on your role within the company. So how will you help the company? What sort of advantages will you get out of it? And this doesn't just come down to, what you learn within the classroom. It will also come down to the network that you'll be gaining, the different people you'll be speaking to from different industries. And the next question is,
I would just chip in on the employer support piece, Zenny, just to say that if you go onto our website, there's a business case that's there. This has helped so many students in our EMBA and EMBA Global cohorts pulling their thoughts together. There isn't any magic bullet. You know your organisation best, and you know the sort of things that they're going to want to hear. First and foremost, some people really agonise about making the case for their MBA when actually their company already has an established MBA support programme. Look for, first of all, don't try and kind of fight the battle from scratch. If there is already, an existing MBA level training and development programme in your organisation, take time to identify the key decision makers. It's often not HR, it is often the head of department. Get your champions in a row and look at the value you're going to bring to the company because of it. All of these things are in the business case, but these are the pieces that help pull together your thoughts. Because when you sit down and make that case for support on a programme, it's not about you, it's very much about the value you're going to be bringing into the organisation and how they can really benefit from it. Now, we've had about 12 to 15 questions, and we've kind of tried to work our way through them as sort of clearly and quickly as we can. It looks at the moment as if questions are drying up a bit, so if you have got any questions, just please plunge in and ask them. Otherwise, we'll wrap this up in the next sort of 5 minutes or so. Thanking you for your time. One area that we haven't covered is, how do I choose? And a couple of questions have popped up saying, how do I really choose between a Sloan and an EMBA, or an EMBA and an EMBA Global, or even an EMBA and an MBA? And that's been popping up as we've gone through this process. And what I want to say there is, just reflecting back Zenny's point, this is about research. Yes, if you look at the programmes, they've all got sort of a different structure, different people involved, the peer groups are different, the degrees are different. In the case of Sloan, which is a specialist master's with a focus on leadership and strategy, we're really happy to have those discussions with you at the earliest stage, because these are different programmes. There are obvious differences and there are more subtle differences, but a lot depends on where you are in your career and what you want to achieve and how you want to achieve it. And these are the conversations that we really enjoy having. And if you contact EMBA London, EMBA Global, the recruitment teams are really, really happy to have those discussions. They want to know that when we get our applicants, Zenny and I, when we're reading them, that those people have done their research, they've really thought about which programme to come into, and that they've had enough guidance to make sure that when they apply, they apply for the programme and the schools that are really right for them. So unless there's any further questions, I think the thing to do now is to thank all of you for your time and in being part of this webinar. Thanks for keeping lots of questions flying at us. So I'll say goodbye.
Thank you for listening, everyone, and all the best with your application.
Absolutely. Good luck with your application.